As I told you, Mr. Frampton Nuttall is a person who is suffering from nervous disorder and wanted to go for a rural retreat. Now, he doesn't know anybody in the village. So, his sister suggests him a place, actually, it's a village, where she lived few years back. She gives him some addresses of the people so that he can feel free to stay in that particular village. Now, the story starts when Mr. Frampton Nuttall knocks the door of Mrs. Sapleton. When he knocks the door was opened by Vera. As I told you, she is the niece of Mrs. Sapleton. She allows him inside. They both sit together for some time and she tells that her aunt would be soon there to attend him. Now, there was a silence among them and it was broken by Vera. Vera starts talking about the things of here and there, like whether he knows the people around there or not. He says that he doesn't know anybody and he first came to meet Mrs. Sapleton so that he can feel free as his sister told him. Now, it took time for Mrs. Sapleton to come there. Meanwhile, this girl, Vera, who is a self possessed girl, self possessed in the sense very confident. And this 15-year-old niece starts talking about the open window in the hall. She says that Mr. Nuttall would never mind if the window is open. Actually, there is no need to discuss about the open window with Mr. Nuttall. But Vera wantedly starts talking about the open window. She tells that her uncle and the two brothers of her aunt with the dog Spaniel went out for hunting 3 years back and they were dead in the treacherous bog which was there in the hunting area. Now she says that they were dead, but she also says Mrs. Stapleton doesn't want to accept the truth and she always keep the window open so that the three men along with the dog come inside. By listening to the story told by Vera, Mr. Nuttall feels a bit nervous. Then Mrs. Stapleton enters the hall. There she sat with Mr. Nuttall and started talking with him about his sister and about him. While talking, she tells him that her husband and two brothers would come from the open window after their hunting for that evening. And Mr. Nuttall, after listening to the words told by Mrs. Stapleton, feels really hasty and feels nervous why this lady is speaking like that about the people who are dead. While talking to him, Mrs. Stapleton keeps on looking at the open window for their husband and for her husband and her brothers. As she was looking at the window, suddenly the people, the three men who went for hunting, would be coming from the window. Why they are coming from the window, I should tell you that. She tells that they make themselves very dirty with the soil and mud in the hunting place. So they won't come from the front door or the main door. Instead, they come from the open window, as these all are like the things which are known to all the men. And when she tells that they are coming, this man, Mr. Nuttall, also turns back, and by seeing them coming live, the three figures, the man with a coat, white coat on his shoulder, who was Mr. Stapleton, and the two brothers of Mrs. Stapleton, along with the dog, would be coming through the window. By seeing them, he feels very nervous and got up from the chair and instantly leaves the house by running. On the way to his uh, on the way to out, he also hits the person who was coming on a bicycle. Later, these three people, they come inside and they would be asking Mrs. Stapleton why that man had left the house by seeing them. Then Mrs. Stapleton says that she too don't know. Actually, Mr. Nuttall thought that those three men and the dog were ghosts of the people. Ghosts, ghosts of the people. Yes, he thought that those are the shadows, ghosts of the people. But Vera says to the aunt and the people who came from hunting, she says that Mr. Nuttall was not afraid of the people, but he was afraid of the dog, because once he had to stay in a grave when a pack of dogs attacked him. The whole night he has to stay in the grave. This is the story told by Vera about Mr. Nuttall. Here you can see that she spontaneously told about Mr. Nuttall, about whom she doesn't know anything. Now, when Mr. Frampton Nuttall entered the house, she told about Mrs. Stapleton, and when the aunt and the people who asked about Mr. Nuttall, she told about him a new story, which is not at all a true one. So this girl played trick on Mr. Nuttall and also the aunt and the other people. She was so spontaneous and confident by playing tricks.